In 2003, America was at war. Again. After launching combat operations in Afghanistan in 2001 following the 9/11 terrorist attacks, President George W. Bush launched a second military incursion against Iraq in March 2003. The justification for the war, that Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein was stockpiling weapons of mass destruction, turned out to be false, a fact senior leadership in the White House was undoubtedly aware of, even as they peddled their fabrications to the media and the United Nations. At the time, the average American wasn't too keen on fact-checking leadership, as President Bush enjoyed widespread approval for opening a second front on the so-called War on Terror. In hindsight, both the media and the public should have been more skeptical of such grave claims, but there was a simple reason for their obsequiousness. People were afraid. When it comes to manipulating society on a mass scale, fear is a powerful lever to pull. George W. Bush knew this, as did the villains of X2. Welcome to Superhero Cinema Club, an in-depth exploration of the history of superhero films. I'm Mark Schiff, and joining me as always, it's the Eureka to my William Stryker. It's Mike Carnes.
I can crack my knuckles. I'm pretty good at that. I got nothing going on right now, apparently.
Oh, I kind of heard one. Yeah, I did pick up one there. Ooh, boy, a lot of people, I think that's a tough spot for people. I think there's some that are really freaked out by that specific sound effect. It is really quite the knuckle cracking.
She had a lot of knuckle pops going on in that scene.
Yeah, it's
pretty
like
impressive.
every bone in every finger is popping multiple times. It's really something. If you can't tell by our intro, today we're going to be talking about the second film in the X-Men series, 2003's X2, aka X-Men United. It's weird because like a lot of places it just says X2, but I think technically it's X2, X-Men United, whatever you want to call it. It's the second in the X-Men film series. As a reminder, you can stream all of the X-Men films with a subscription to Disney+. So might be worth refreshing your memory if it's been a while since you watched this one. Mike, I know that normally we save our final verdict for the end of the show, but I want to kind of kick things off just giving my personal opinion. We'll save yours for later. I think X2 is an absolute superhero classic. And the reason why I bring that up now is because I thought I'd open the show with this question. Is X2 the father of all modern superhero films? Let me make a case for that, and here's kind of my thinking.
Okay.
Our previous episode, 2000's X-Men, kind of tilled the ground, used a lot of computer CGI, as we talked about. Spider-Man in 2002 was an absolute massive sensation. Definitely used a lot of CGI as well, and really brought that character to life in a way that was realistic for the first time. But to me, this is the film where all of those tilled ground and planted seeds really starts to bear fruit. So I identified a number of firsts that I could think of in X2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this is the first superhero film to have a super slow-mo action sequence. Spider-Man has like a couple shots where it cuts to slow-mo, but like the Nightcrawler scene is by far the most elaborate use of slow motion in the superhero film. That's become a hallmark of superhero cinema, especially Zack Snyder and the DCEU. Another first for me, cool music drops over an action scene. Now, at the beginning of the film, that same Nightcrawler scene, they use a Mozart. It was actually Requiem. That was finished later, but it's kind of incorporating Mozart. It's not the pop music drop of the James Gunn where he's using pop music with action, but it's still, the music is so evocative in that scene, and it's really the first time in superhero films that they're setting it to like a really noticeable music drop. Splitting up the team into smaller missions, then bringing them all back together for the climax. This is a formula we've seen in Avengers, countless other superhero films. Of course, when you have Batman and Superman, they're individual superheroes, so it's hard to do they're not really on teams, so you can't really break them up. But nevertheless, that's definitely become one of the hallmarks of superhero films. Heroes and villains teaming up to stop an even bigger threat. I mean, we've seen this over and over in the Thor films with Thor and Loki, their dynamic. And then finally, time freezing in a specific location and everyone's frozen, but the characters are moving all around them. I feel like we've seen that a lot. We'll see it again in some of these X-Men movies too. That's the effect they use for Quicksilver specifically, and in some other films. So there's just a number of different things that I caught in this movie that I feel like have gone on to become hallmarks of the superhero genre. So I think in a lot of ways, what we think of as modern superhero films kind of begins here. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you threw a lot at me here, and that's you gave me a lot to think about. I think, being the father of modern superhero movies, a lot of superhero movies in the last 5 to 10 years are focused heavily, like you said, on team dynamics and splitting the teams up and going on individual missions. Like you said, Avengers is a big part of that, specifically Avengers Infinity War, where we get like Thor and Rocket going off to forge the hammer, while meanwhile, Captain America and Black Widow and everybody, they're trying to protect Vision. This is definitely kind of the first time that we've seen not just the team splitting up, but also I felt like a good combination of powers happening simultaneously, or just like a good display of like, if this person does this with their power, then this other person can use their power to complement that. You know what I mean? So I think that there's a lot of that happens in this movie, which is kind of a big stepping stone into what we see in modern superhero movies as well. And we're bringing a lot of that back. I know we just saw a trailer last week for Professor X and Magneto rejoining Avengers, and or I shouldn't say rejoining, but joining the Avengers.
Yeah, first time.
Yep, we're getting their crossover for Doomsday, and it's such an imperative part of the Marvel universe that they've decided to finally bring it in and make it something that we've all wanted to see, which is X-Men being a part of the same universe as Thor and Iron Man and Captain America.
Kevin Feige got his start on the X-Men films, as we discussed in our previous episode. And Lauren Schuler Donner was a producer on this, who also worked on Superman. So there's definitely a lot of the DNA of superheroes going all the way back to the original Superman film in the X-Men movies. But I do think that just rewatching this movie now, I feel like it wasn't dated really in any way. There's a couple visual effects things that are a little sketchier
Yeah,
than normal days, but certainly compared to the original X-Men, and just in terms of the story, the action, the way it's filmed, all of the kind of plot beats and things like that, it really did feel to me like this is basically the precursor to the modern superhero film as we know it, in a way that even the first X-Men wasn't.
they stepped up their game for this one. It definitely feels like the stakes are higher. We get a more personal level with Wolverine and his backstory, which is, if you've read the comics or seen the animated show, you know a bit about that already. But it's nice to see that actually brought to screen. But you're combining that with this high stakes worldwide threat that's happening, as opposed to just something that's kind of centralized off of Ellis Island in the first one. It works really well. It's also a location hopping movie. We're in a lot of different scenes across the United States, and that kind of gives it a grander scope, I think, too, for this one.
Absolutely. I would say in a lot of respects, this is just a great step up from the original. We talked about that in previous episodes about kind of taking the original formula and expanding it out more for the sequel. So let's jump into the Tale of the Cape for X2. This film was released on May 2nd, 2003 in the United States. Unlike the first film, which had a budget of 75 million, they got quite a bit more money, between 110 and 125 million, to make X2. And guess what? Much bigger box office results. They made $407.7 million, Mike, at the box office, making it the ninth highest grossing film of 2003. Pop quiz: can you name the top grossing film of 2003?
2003, it's got to be Return of the King.
You're goddamn right. It's The Return of the King.
Yeah.
Finding Nemo, number 2. Matrix Reloaded, number 3. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, the first Pirates movie, number 4. Bruce Almighty, kind of shockingly. Our old friend Jim Carrey, still killing it at 5. This one was surprising to me. The Last Samurai, at number 6, $454 million at the box office. Terminator 3 at 7, and Matrix Revolutions dropping all the way down to 8. And then we had X2 at 9. A huge hit, even bigger than the original, but a lot of the same creative crew was back for the second go round. So this film was once again directed by Bryan Singer, It had a story by Zach Penn, David Hayter, and Brian Singer, with the screenplay credited to Michael Dougherty, Dan Harris, and David Hayter. Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris would go on to work on a lot of the future X-Men films with Brian Singer, and David Hayter, of course, your guy,
Solid Snake.
Solid Snake. So the plan for this one was to make kind of a darker movie than the original, The Empire Strikes Back theory, to kind of split up the team like they did in Empire Strikes Back as well. So that was definitely an influence on it. The big iconic X-Men storyline is Dark Phoenix, but thankfully someone dissuaded them from jumping right into that. They felt like they needed a little bit more time to kind of set up the characters before they got into it. The ending of this film kind of lays the ground explicitly, really, for the following installment, which we'll be talking about on our next episode. Yeah, for the most part, they brought back a lot of the same crew from the first film, including Newton Thomas Siegel as cinematographer. Fun fact, I think we might have mentioned it in the previous one, but Newton Thomas Siegel has also been hired as a cinematographer for Avengers Doomsday. So
Oh,
we got
yeah,
that to look forward to.
that's right.
There were a couple big changes, however, and I would say probably the best change is that Bryan Singer got editor John Ottman to do the score for this film. We kind of talked about it in the last episode. Not a particularly memorable score in either of our opinions from Michael Kamen on the original X-Men. I think this score is like far and away better. I mean, it is vastly improved. I love the theme at the end. I just think that there's just a lot better score in this one. A couple kind of funny music drops as well, but the score does the heavy lifting. I thought it was a lot better. What were your thoughts, Mike?
Talking about it with you right now, I can't really think of a moment where it really stood out to me. So I would say that it did its job and it served its purpose, but it didn't get in the way. And other than, like you said, the Mozart drop at the beginning for Nightcrawler, I really can't think of any other musical highlight in the movie. So it's fine, I guess.
When In Sync comes on in Cyclops' car, that you weren't like jamming out? I know you're a big In Sync guy.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Is that why Deadpool 3 starts the way it does? Is because Wolverine's so annoyed by that song that he turns it off immediately?
Boy, that's a great, hilarious callback that you just picked up on. I hadn't even thought of that, Mike. Good job. Nice. Bryan Singer also hired Guy Hendricks Dias as production designer. This was his first film, and he's since gone on to have a lot of success. He also production designer on Inception, Passengers, Michael Mann's Black Hat, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull,
Oh,
as well as, you're going to like this one, Mike, the upcoming Masters of the Universe film. That's right. We're getting a He-Man movie this year, and I, for one, could not be more excited.
okay.
No Oscar nominations, Mike. Moving right along.
Let's move on. Let's just move on from there.
No Oscar nominations. And it's funny because, obviously I'm not going to sit here and advocate this movie should have had a bunch of Oscar nominations, but clearly the visual effects, which we've discussed already, really impressive, as well as the makeup. Unfortunately, when you have Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, and I know you and I both, absolute banger, Master and Commander, Far Side of the World,
Oh, hell yeah. It's a great movie.
it's pretty tough to squeeze in visual effects nominees on those three, so it was left out. You could maybe say sound mixing too, but I don't know.
There was one award this movie got that I think is worthy of shouting out, and that is that BET awarded the Best Actress to Halle Berry for her role in this movie.
Best actress Halle Berry, shout out from BET on that one.
Sure.
Well, speaking of, Halle Berry was actually coming off of 2002's Oscar-winning performance in Monster Ball before she made this movie, so they actually had to do some rewrites, and she got herself a nice hefty pay raise. Doesn't have a ton to do in this movie. Would like to have seen maybe a little bit more Storm. She's all right. She has some good moments, but yeah, it's an ensemble film, so that's just part of the business. While Halle Berry was back for X2, there were a couple of new characters introduced, new heroes and villains in this one, the biggest of which is Nightcrawler, the iconic X-Men character who goes bamf when he pops in and out, teleporter.
That's right.
Really cool character. Wasn't really sure about his jacket I watched a little behind the scenes from the costume designer, and she was really proud of putting some cool sparkles and stuff on his jacket. Didn't love those necessarily, but overall, I really enjoyed Nightcrawler in this film.
His jacket was not something that even caught my eye. So she may have been proud of it, but she was probably the only one. Interesting fact, did you know that he was actually the son of Mystique in the comics?
I think I did hear that at some point. Yeah, I don't really know how they kind of officially explained it.
I remember that too, specifically in the animated show. Like, there's a scene where she kind of gives him the Moses treatment and puts him in a basket because there's like people coming after them or something. But yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing for them to change. I guess it wouldn't really have made sense for them to add Nightcrawler in this timeline. The continuity wouldn't have worked or anything. Little fun fact there.
You know, now that you mention it, Mike, I can kind of see the family resemblance. Blue skin.
Okay, so then Beast too is also related to them.
That's a whole other can of worms. We'll get into that one in the next one. But and then we have a couple new villains that are also introduced in this movie. First and foremost among them, Colonel William Stryker, Brian Cox. What an absolute banger of a performance from Brian Cox in this movie. His stock, I
Yes.
was trying to think, Mike, Brian Cox has been around forever. Like, he's in so many films, so many different things, Super Troopers, like all these different random movies. But I can't really think of a single actor whose stock has gone on the rise more in the last like 5 years than Brian Cox, just because of Succession. He's so good in that show.
Yeah.
He's like the perfect patriarch of that family and just gives an amazing performance, is really kind of anchors that show in a lot of respects. And it's just cool to see him like, oh yeah, I completely had kind of forgotten that it was Brian Cox was Colonel Stryker. Good stuff.
Have you ever seen the movie Rob Roy with Liam Neeson?
Been a while, but I think I watched it once.
He's an incredible villain in that. It's him and Tim Roth are kind of the two main villains, and they're both excellent in that movie. So yeah, Brian Cox, he's been, like you said, he's been doing this a long time. He's an amazing actor. He's a great villain, and he delivers a hell of a performance in this movie, I think.
I was piloting Black Op missions in the jungles of North Vietnam when you were sucking on your mama's tit at Woodstock, Kelly. Don't lecture me about war. This already is a war. Loved it.
Great delivery. Well done.
Thanks. A lot of people have said I sound a lot like Brian Cox, so good stuff from him. And we kind of alluded to her earlier. I don't know how much we need to talk about her character too much. They never actually call her Lady Deathstrike, but Yuriko Oriyama, aka Lady Deathstrike, his quote unquote assistant,
Yeah.
got the Wolverine fingernails. That's pretty cool.
So again, they're changing some stories around here from the comics, which is fine. But do you know much about her character originally?
I don't. I know a little more about when she's brought into the Wolverine movie, but yeah, not too much. What's up with her?
Wolverine spent some time in Japan and fell in love with her, and they had a very tragic relationship. I think he thought she was dead, and then she ended up not being dead, and she was given the adamantium treatment and became Lady Deathstrike, and then came back for revenge for leaving her to die or something like that. I don't know. But these are all memories that I have based off of the animated show that are kind of flooding back to me here as we're talking about it. So, yeah, that's another one of those characters that they kind of maybe should have deserved a bigger backstory, but didn't have time for it. And they just threw him in for, fanfare.
Yeah, that's one thing about this movie is there's a lot of callbacks to characters in really subtle ways that X-Men heads would know, but maybe the general public wouldn't be as aware of, or non-comic book fans. So it's kind of a nice little Easter egg for the real ones like yourself. Love to see it.
Hey, likewise.
Let's get into our categories now, starting with the best action scene, Mike. I've already kind of alluded to it, but the opening Nightcrawler Oval Office attack. Mike, again, I'm just going to go ahead and say it right now. I think this is not only the best action set piece in this film, I think this is one of the best action set pieces in superhero cinema history. It is exactly what I kind of imagined as a fan that his power set would look like in real life. I think that's something this movie and all of the Bryan Singer's X-Men films do really well, is bringing those powers to life in a very cinematic way. I think the way that it's filmed is super cool too. He has his first wave of attacks where he's kind of going after the general security guard, kind of working his way into the Oval Office, and really smartly, after that first wave of attacks, the camera just stays in the Oval Office and you just hear all these other guys getting taken out. And they all just have this look of fear and terror on their faces. So you're really building tension and you're really feeling like, oh no, what's going to happen? You know that you're going to get the big climax in. And then once that happens, the slow motion looks tremendous. The way you can see everything that he's doing, all his kind of jumping around and just taking out the guards one by one. Of course, when he finally makes it through all of them and gets the president, he kind of sniffs him and then smiles. It shows a close up on his like teeth. He just really looks very demonic at that moment and inhuman. And then, of course, right as he's about to plunge the knife into the president's heart, the Secret Service agent shoots him. So he has to get out of there. And then you have the shot of the mutant Freedom Now on the knife, and the camera pans up to show the president's reaction to it. Combined with the Mozart and everything, Mike, it just gets my blood going. I loved it so much.
It's a great scene. Surprisingly, I found that it aged really well. I thought from, over 20 years later now, nothing looks bad in this scene. Any of the slow motion shots, it still holds up. It's kind of perfected in Days of Future Past with Quicksilver, which we talked about a little bit. But even now, just watching it today, it's like, man, this scene just fucking kicks ass, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, there's also some nice symbolism there, too, right? The scene starts out with a quote from Abraham Lincoln. It's from his first inaugural address, right before the Civil War started, and kind of talking about bridging these divides, which is obviously symbolic in this film. There's then a painting of JFK, who was an assassinated president.
Oh, that was a good shot.
Yeah, mimicking his pose, which is interesting. Just creates this general fear that our leaders and by extension American society is under attack. It really drives home that threat of how powerful the mutants can be when they can actually get all the way into the Oval Office and pose a direct threat to the president. Again, I don't want to lay too heavy on this, but I also do think that it's worth talking about the fact that this film was released less than 2 months after we launched the war in Iraq. So I think audiences at the time too were kind of in that anxious place where a lot of freedoms felt under attack, leadership and just the general way of things had been really turned sideways, right, by 9/11. So I don't think this film is making a lot of explicit callbacks or comments necessarily on the war in Iraq the way that, say, Iron Man does, but it definitely did feel like that was kind of hanging in the zeitgeist at the time that this was released. And so just kind of by the timing of the film's release itself really touched on, I think, just a general feeling of kind of malaise and fear in the general public. Our next big scene is the raid on Xavier Mansion. Sneaky soldiers coming in, being super quiet and just shooting the nice kid who's like, hi guys, what are you doing? The kid that, let's call him remote control because he can just change the channels with his eyes. I don't really know what that kid's name is in the comic books, but
Yeah, but I didn't recognize him.
what I like about this scene, you just get the cool little Easter eggs, like I mentioned before. Being an X-Men fan, it was so sick, Mike, when all of a sudden the ripped teenager kid just goes metal and turns into Colossus, and it's like, that's Colossus. And of course, Kitty Pryde going through the walls,
Yes.
and then Siren screaming, letting out the shriek to let everyone know. It's just little Easter eggs that if you were a fan, you picked up on. Really awesome scene. And then, of course, I really like the ending too, where Iceman like freezes the wall and creates the barrier between him and Stryker, and they like kind of reach out and kind of touch hands through the ice. Like, the very cool shot there. So excellent scene as well.
Yeah, the lighting for the ice scene in particular, I thought was great. And this is one of those examples of where we can see different powers all affecting the same scene. All the different characters and even all these minor characters, you're only going to see them as an example this one time in the movie, but they're all impacting the scene in their own way. We get Wolverine going absolutely berserker mode, and I'm going to lead into death toll category a little bit here. And let's just assume that every guy that he stabs gets killed, right?
Fair assumption.
10 guys on screen.
Wow.
10 people by my count is what he's killing here. So that's the start to our death toll count here right now.
Interesting. Well, apparently, one of the facts I read was that this movie actually was given an R rating initially, and that this was the scene that they had to scale back some of the blood to get it down to PG-13. So, yeah, that kind of checks out. 10 dudes. Dang. Let's go, Wolverine. Pretty good body count, and we're just getting rolling here.
That's right.
Ice Raid on Iceman. Had to kind of throw in a little ice pun there, even though they're not technically ice, they're just police officers. But
Yeah, they're just police.
yeah,
Pull ice. Pull ice.
there's something like that. Yeah, obviously the cops show up at Bobby Drake's house, and there's lots of explosions from pyro. Wolverine just taking a bullet right to the side of the head in the temple. Love that part.
Oh man,
Absolutely
I
sick.
saw this movie in the theater when it came out, and I still remember the audience reaction to that. Everybody was like, "Oh my god!" And then you could kind of tell people were like, "Oh no, he's fine. He's got the skeleton. He's okay. He can heal it." Like the realization of coming back. That's something I had yet to experience again in a theater. Is that kind of reaction?
Yeah, seeing a dude get shot in the temple generally is going to mean death, like instantaneously and gruesome. There's only a little trickle of blood here. Yeah, obviously he survives because of his powers, but yeah, it's a very shocking and pulse pounding moment for sure. This one isn't really a full action scene, but we got to shout it out. Escape from plastic purgatory, Magneto's escape from his prison cell. We'll get into it later. Got a couple questions about the actual mechanics of how he was able to pull this off, but what a sick scene where it's just he's pulls the is it's what is it, iron, right, in his blood,
Yeah.
and just pulls it on a like a molecular level basically from this guy, brings him to the ground, and just immediately just makes like 3 ball bearings. And that's all Magneto needs to just absolutely lay waste to his prison cell, builds himself a little platform that he can then hover across. I don't know which one of those screenwriters came up with this idea, but what an absolutely sick way to show Magneto's powers. It's just one of the best scenes in the movie for sure.
Yeah, I wanted more. I wanted to see him continue on through the facility and rip everything up and then finally make it outside. And, we got the point. They cut it for time or whatever, and it worked the way that they cut it. But that's the kind of stuff I'm here to see is Magneto just going to town and completely ripping everybody to shreds.
Amen to that, brother.
There's more dead toll there, at least 3 guys.
Okay, good stuff. I appreciate your thoroughness when it comes to this exercise. Next up, we've got the Blackbird attack. X-Men goes Top Gun for a minute here, and the Blackbird is under threat from military pilots. I like how the lady, they give the shot of her actually doing like the cop thing of like, get down, like pointing her finger down to the ground like she's that close to him. That's pretty hilarious. But the only thing I could think this scene, Mike, was that these pilots must have been trained in Top Gun by Tom Cruise because they are dodging tornadoes. They're doing a really good job of navigating some extreme circumstances, I would say.
I thought this, again, another good scene that still held up over 20 years later. The CG looks really good. The plane flying through the tornadoes, the Blackbird itself, the missile that comes in and destroys the back end of the Blackbird. And then we get the amazing shot of Rogue being sucked out by the vacuum and Nightcrawler immediately rescuing her. That was amazing. Again, a great use of like different powers happening here. Something you forget about in the moment, like, oh crap, this version of Rogue can't fly. She's done for, but then immediately Nightcrawler springs into action and saves her.
Totally. Yeah, it's awesome. And again, watching a behind the scenes featurette, the visual effects supervisor who had also done X1, he said he's always super self-critical after movies, and after the first one he was really disappointed in himself. He's like, I could have done so much better. And so they built an entire new computer system just to make the tornadoes in this movie. They built it from scratch on the ground up and put in, a lot of visual effects work, a lot of innovations to just get that effect looking good. And it does. It looks really good. Again, especially over 20 years later. Last but not least, Mike, we have climax at Alkali Lake. So what I like about this scene is that there's just a lot of kind of individual cool moments that kind of add up to like a really awesome extended climax. So first off, you get Mystique versus the soldiers, and I just love how she like comes in on the guy and he's like, we got a shapeshifter in the room, and it's like, yeah, it's me. Like she basically spoils him by, it's just a really brilliant tactic on her part and really cool that she could get through. Then you get a Cyclops versus Jean Grey battle, which is one lover's quarrel that you don't want to get in the middle of. Yeah, I would say it's not the best of all of these, but
Man,
it's okay still. We get a little bit. Once again, Cyclops, extremely underused in this movie. Apparently there was quite a bit more than that they had to leave out with him being captured along with Professor X. But yeah, poor Marsden, man. He gets short shrift of all the X-Men.
He disappears for like half the movie.
Yeah, barely in it. Then we have Wolverine versus Lady Deathstrike. To me, like, this is the one. I mean, that is a sick, sick fight sequence between the two of them. I love when she just starts kind of pouncing him with her fingernails, just like really quickly. And he's like, ah.
Mhm.
And then, of course, doing her in by flipping her into the water and jamming the adamantium into her,
Oh,
just
terrible.
coming out of her eyes.
A terrible way to die.
Terrible way to die. Just awesome fight scene. And then, of course, you have Jason versus Professor X. This is more of a psychological battle than a physical one. Yeah, it's just a really, like I said, it's really clever the way that they, again, kind of set up a number of different battles, kind of split up the teams, and really just give you like a broad showcase of all the different powers. So I'm assuming your favorite of these was Wolverine versus Lady Deathstrike as well, or what do you got, Mike?
Best action scene overall, I'm going actually with the mansion raid. I think, like I said, I think it's just a really good set piece in general. Having the mansion at night, it looks really cool. It's a good set design all around. We get Wolverine just ripping dudes to shreds left and right. I do wish that we had seen a little more of Wolverine and Colossus. Maybe give me the fastball special on screen, have him just pick him up and hurl him towards a group of guys or something. But I think that this was a really impactful scene to show towards the beginning of the movie, and it's my pick for my favorite action scene.
Even over the Nightcrawler.
I love the Nightcrawler scene. I think it's great, and it's especially really well filmed. But I'm here for my favorite characters. I'm here to see them do cool stuff. Nightcrawler's not really my favorite character in this movie. It's a good use of his powers, but like I said, I want to watch Wolverine, man. That's why I'm here. He's the star of the movie, and we finally get to see him doing what he does best, as he says, something like that.
Yeah, you're paraphrasing a bit, but yeah, that's good stuff. I would say it's my second favorite after the Nightcrawler one. I really did. Like I said, I really remember like the exhilaration of like, oh, it's Colossus. That was such a cool moment in the theater for X-Men fans. And like I said, all the little Easter eggs of the other characters that you kind of only get just a quick glimpse of in the movie. Yeah, I wanted more of that. So yeah, it's a good call, but man, I'm just shocked because like I said, for me, the Nightcrawler is like top 10 superhero action scenes probably ever for me.
I won't negate that. It's a great scene. It's a great superhero scene. It's very classic and still holds up today.
All right, let's talk next category about secret layers and costuming. So I think one of the things to me, Mike, that's really cool in this one relative to the first film is the Magneto costume. They did such a cool thing where one side's like a little longer. They redesigned his helmet a little bit. I just feel like this is probably the sickest Magneto looks in all of them. We'll have to analyze closer as we keep going, but yeah, I really like the redesigned Magneto costume in this.
That costume's a lot better. What's not better is his prison outfit. I have no idea what's going on with this. There's like the weird little loops that are around his shoulders and his chest and everything. That's just a weird looking. It's all white. He looks like he's going to play shuffleboard or something. I don't know, man. It's a weird suit that he's wearing in that prison cell.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Rogue looks a lot better because of her streak. I mean, it's funny that Magneto and Mystique are gossiping like little teenage girls in the back of the bus. Like, we're just joking about your hair and how good it looked. Didn't like that part. She looks way sicker with the blonde streak in the front, personally, or the white streak in the front. That's the classic Rogue look.
Yeah,
They found a cool way to incorporate that look based on the events of the first film. I really like how Rogue looks in this one. Now, the X-Men themselves, they're still in their black era. It's an upgrade over the first one, but no one is ever going to be like, man, I just wish they would bring back the all black costumes for the X-Men. Those were the ones. They're just not that cool. There's a couple jokes about it. Again, they have to be self-referential about it, but I don't know. Slight improvement from the first one, but still missing that classic comic book look. And then as far as secret layers go in this one, we get a lot at Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Children. Great scenes throughout there. And then the secret base, I think, is like, on the one hand, it's just Spartan. It's just like empty, abandoned former research facility. But it's kind of the perfect location for not only his evil secret lair, but just a cool space to have good action scenes. Because when they're fighting, creates cracks in the dams. There's real peril at destroying the location they're in, which I really like. Yeah, I really thought that was a cool kind of secret lair. And then, of course, Cerebro is a huge part of this film. I love the way that they visualize Cerebro. I love the scene how in Jason's first like hallucination with Professor X, he has him standing up and he like immediately recognizes like, oh wait, this is some kind of fantasy, and then he resets it where he's in the wheelchair and now he can like go along with it. I thought that was just an awesome little touch they added to the film. And yeah, I love how they do Cerebro in this. What do you think?
I think the alkali base is great set design, especially the room where the adamantium is. You see all the X-rays and how he's been using the adamantium. Wolverine kind of sees the X-rays of what he's been doing to Lady Deathstrike and how he's trying to recreate his Weapon X again through her. And great lighting. Everything has kind of like a green hue to it, you know. There's like a lot of chains. It's very from like the Alien movies. There's a lot of wet chains and stuff, and water dripping down them and making noise everywhere, and just good sense of atmosphere being built in these rooms. And that's the best pick, I think, for the secret layer here for this one.
Yeah, it's really cool. They use it to great effect. All right, next category. This is where you get to shine, Mike. It sounds like you've done a lot of research. Hit us with the total destruction. How much damage is done and how many people die in this one?
Okay, so as I mentioned, we've got 10 kills from Wolverine in the mansion. We've got at least 3 from Magneto when he breaks out of his prison. During the climax of the film at Alkali Base, we see Magneto pull the pins on a bunch of grenades that these soldiers are wearing and they explode. So I'm assuming at least 8 guys right there. So far I'm at 21. Wolverine kills Stryker. Wolverine kills Lady Deathstrike. It's 23. Jason Stryker gets crushed to death. 24. But here's where things get a little fishy for me with the numbers, and I'm not really sure how to tally it. So Jason is using Professor X to target all of the mutants on Earth. And we see that when he's doing this, people are in agony. They're clutching their heads, they're writhing in pain all over the floor. And then Magneto comes in and tells him to instead target all of the humans on the planet. We know from the first movie that there's significantly more humans in the world than there are mutants. So you have to assume 6, 7 billion people are now all experiencing this excruciating pain that Professor X is using Cerebro to give them. So I kind of felt like this is a pluribus kind of situation where people are driving cars, people are flying airplanes, they're crossing the street while this is happening. There has to be millions of deaths during this moment. Like it's obviously big enough to where the president of the United States at the end of the movie has to address it on a national scale, right? What are we saying here? I know in pluribus they said it was like 800 million people all died, right? In that moment of the joining because of a similar situation.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. Pluribus is the comp here. I wouldn't have even really thought about what you brought up if not for Pluribus because they actually put a figure to that kind of oh my gosh, I'm blanking out for a second. Now, I will say it seems like you're in agonizing pain, but you can kind of fight through it. Whereas with Pluribus, you're going into basically a full on seizure. So I think you would maybe swerve your car, but you could maybe fight the pain and regain control. That being said, I think we got to assume worldwide hundreds of thousands of deaths as a result. I mean,
I would say millions.
conservatively, you may be right. I think we could probably push to at least 1 million people dying through various motor vehicle accidents, crashing into buildings, plane accidents, someone in the hospital having surgery, and the doctor just, just starts
Yeah. Snip the wrong artery in that moment. Yeah.
snip the wrong thing. Yeah, I think we could safely say 1 million people die. This is bad news, Mike. This is by far the grimmest death toll so far in all of our superhero. It's a pretty wide margin, in fact.
Yeah.
That was expertly argued. Well said.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, pretty dark post 9/11 times here in America when this movie was coming out. So, well, let's talk about that evil scheme a little bit for our next category. I think it's fucking genius. I think it's flat out genius what they're trying to do. Now, I'm not saying that they're correct in it, but if you're Colonel Stryker and your whole thing is, first of all, you have a black flag attack. Is that what that's called? False flag attack.
false flag. Yeah,
on the president where, oh, I'm going to, manipulate this mutant into assassinating the president, which will then trigger a war against mutants. So that plot fails, which is a pretty decent plot if you're trying to instigate a war. Now I'm just going to cut straight to the source and just eliminate every mutant in the world by using the most powerful mutant telepath to those ends and just win the war basically before it even starts. Again, not saying I agree with that plan. I'm anti Colonel Stryker. I want to go on the record as saying that, but it is a very clever plan. And what's even more clever is that Magneto is like, oh, you know what? That is a good idea. Except let's just invert it. And let's just wipe out all the humans with one fell stroke. Let's just get rid of all of them. I thought that was double clever, dastardly plans. I love the evil scheme in this movie, Mike.
I agree. I think this is a very good plan. I do think it has a couple of holes, and I'm going to save those for I got questions.
Fair enough. Looking forward to it. Now's the part where we pick our favorite and least favorite mutants in the movie. So I'll go ahead and kick us off with the best mutant for me, and I know you've already said it, so I don't think we're going to have the same pick. I'm going Nightcrawler. Love the opening scene. As I mentioned, this is almost exactly how I envisioned his powers when I read the comic books as a kid, and to see that brought to life was absolutely exhilarating. Nightcrawler is not one of the X-Men that you're thinking of like, dude, that guy is a threat. That's a really powerful, dangerous power set. And yet, here he is, Nightcrawler, almost single-handedly assassinating the president. What a cool way to show actually he has amazing powers, really deadly powers if he wants to use them. I really like Alan Cumming's performance as Nightcrawler. I know that Alan Cumming has spoken about how he did not have a great time doing this film. I think he's a lot happier hosting the Emmy-winning reality television show The Traitors on Peacock. He's just really good. He's very empathetic, and I think that in a lot of ways Nightcrawler kind of embodies like what the X-Men are all about. He literally embodies this horrible, frightening, demonic looking monster that has this really sweet disposition. His faith is really deep. He's a devout Catholic in the movie. He tattoos his body, in fact, with all the deadly sins that, he mentions. And he's just the total embodiment of what it is to be an X-Man and be misunderstood, to be outcast. That exchange with Storm I found quite poignant on the Blackbird. She says, sometimes anger can help you survive. And he says, so can faith. I thought that was honestly like some of the best lines in the movie. Really love Nightcrawler. So for me, he's the winner. Best mutant of the movie. Who you got for best mutant of X2?
He does kind of steal the show. He's got a great opening to the movie. We talked about the scene where he rescues Rogue. That was very unexpected and cool. He's got a couple of funny jokes too. Like when Wolverine gets in the plane, he's like, "Who's this guy?" He's like, "Well, in the Munich circus, I was known as the Incredible Nightcrawler." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." Just like it's a funny little throwaway line, but it does work. It's a good pick for sure. I'm still a Magneto guy. I can't help it. That Magneto escape scene is so cool. Like I said, I just wanted more of that. How cool is that to be able to just pull an element out of someone's body to kill them and then use that element to your advantage and escape from prison, from this amazing $1 million prison that they built just for him. I just wanted more from him. He stops the Blackbird from falling out of the sky immediately. He just stops it with his own power. Like this guy has got to be the most powerful mutant on the planet, either him or Professor X.
He's got some banger lines too. You are a god among insects. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. Just love that. Magneto is incredibly badass in this movie. And again, I love the bait and switch where you're like, oh, maybe, Magneto's like teaming up. Maybe he's not so bad. He's like, no, I'm still Magneto. I'm still a mutant supremacist. I still want to kill all the humans. Like, I haven't really changed my stripes. I'll help you because you're means to an end for me, but I'm still, I'm still the bad guy. Don't you ever forget it. It's awesome. He's great. All right, for worst mutant, Mike, I'm going to make the argument for Pyro. Got a few different points of data here to go for Pyro. Number one, this dude is always flicking his Zippo lighter nonstop, super annoying to everyone around him. I understand as a fidgeter, that is a thing that's like, okay, I get it, but like everyone else is like, knock it off, dude. So annoying all the time. Then he starts a fight at the museum, has to get bailed out by Professor X. It's literally about to start a whole riot at the museum if Professor X doesn't save his ass. Next time you're thinking about showing off, don't. Put him in his place, Professor X. Then when they're at Bobby's house, he just starts blowing up the police cars willy nilly. You heard about the bad mutants? Well, I'm the worst one of all. First of all, that's demonstrably not true because
Right.
Magneto's out there and he's full on genocidal. So you're not the worst mutant unless you're in this category, in which case you are, but that's an aside. But he just basically escalates the entire situation into like, I mean, did you count any of the cops there? Certainly there's got to be at least one
Forgot all about
police
that.
officer who was fatally injured. Yeah. So they get added to the death toll. And then at the end of the movie, he's just like, first chance he sees Magneto, he's like, yep, I'm joining with you, bro. Never mind all of the support and everyone bailing me out throughout the entire movie. They probably should have left my ass at Bobby's house, but they still brought me along because they believe in me. Nope, I'm joining you, Magneto. Here's the worst part, though, Mike. Of all these sins, he can't even create his own fire. He says it multiple times. Well, I can't actually create my own fire. I can only manipulate flame when it's... Which means he's out there in the freezing cold, gets stranded out in Canada or something. He's going to need someone to light that spark, light that match for him to save his own ass, despite having the powers of fire manipulation. Nah, Pyro, you're the worst mutant in the film. Get out of here with that junk. Taking a bold stand here, but someone has to say it, Mike. I'll say it here too.
I mean, yeah, his powers are okay, but he definitely is the worst character in the film. I think it just not just the worst mutant for all the reasons you just stated. So yeah, he gets my vote as well. Pyro gets that stamp of disapproval from both of us.
And now it's time for the part of the show where we call out the stuff that we noticed in a little segment we call I've Got Questions.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
Questions. Questions that need answering.
Too many questions. There's too many questions. There's just too many. I'll ask the questions.
All right, Mike, I'm going to kick us off. I got questions. So Mystique is just spending half of her life disguised as Senator Robert Kelly, going to like Senate judiciary hearings.
She's like filibustering on the floor.
Like, this is a United States senator. Like, imagine how busy that man's schedule is. I'm assuming he's got a wife and children. So is she just Kellying throughout the day and then in the middle of the night, like doing her Mystique stuff? Like, how does that work? Because that's a really tough position to assume the role of. Because like the world is just assuming Robert Kelly's still alive.
Yep.
I see the point, but like logistically, that's a tough one. I got questions about that.
I don't know. She probably just lets it go at some point. And the world just goes, "Oh, Senator Kelly's missing" or something. I don't know.
She's like in the middle of a filibuster. Is just like, fuck it, I'm Mystique. I can't keep up this charade anymore. We killed him a while ago.
But that's funny too.
He's been dead for 6 months. Like, I don't know what to tell you people. I'm out of here.
No, that's a good one.
What do you got?
So this is legitimately a question. Is that the Watcher that we see at the opening shot of the movie? Professor X is doing his monologue about evolution, and we see like the universe, and then there's like a being made up of the universe and the stars and everything that we see like some sort of, person in the universe. I was assuming that that's the Watcher.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe another Easter egg for fans. I didn't really catch it myself. I was kind of obsessed with the bad CGI at the opening of the film, but like, yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, okay.
All right, interesting.
It's a good question.
So my first real one though is, so Wolverine can just start a car with one of his claws? I don't really think that's how hot wiring works. You need the key. It's just like, it's just a giant, like I could just take a giant knife and start any car that I want with it.
Great point. On a related note, there's a shot of like the kitty at Xavier's mansion, like takes a lick of milk off of Wolverine's claw.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking like that cat's tongue is just split open. It's an immediate trip to the veterinary's office. Like just right away, you got to get that cat to a vet because it just split his tongue open on adamantium. Okay, fair point. My next question is that the government just lets Professor X visit Magneto whenever he feels like it. Is that the deal? Because he's visiting him at the end of X-Men. And then he's back, and I was thinking like, oh, okay, he must be like mind controlling them to just like open the gates, let us in, like we're just going to have a visit that you will never know that we're here kind of thing. But then one of the guards says something bigoted to Cyclops. So they're clearly lucid and aware that they're visiting. And I'm just like confused that the government would be like, yeah, you can visit this mutant terrorist whenever you want. I mean, you guys did catch him after all. So go ahead, like, have a nice little visit, Professor X. Like, it's just bizarre to me.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain that. He's got carte blanche apparently to just go do whatever he wants when it comes to Magneto. So they're old friends. They've known each other for decades. Let him in.
It's like you'd think with all the anti-mutant prejudice going around America at the time that they would be like, get out of here, mutie. What do you think you're entitled to visit? No, like, but instead they're just like, sure, come on in. Good to see you again, Charles. How you doing? It's been a while.
No metal on you now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What's your next one?
The mind control thing kind of confuses me in this plot here. It's part of his evil scheme. I mentioned earlier, this feels like a hole. So he just uses a liquid that he burns on the back of their neck that somehow puts them into his employ. He does it to Nightcrawler to tells him to kill the president. He does it to Cyclops and tells them to kill everybody basically. And Magneto, he's using it on Magneto to get information out of him. Okay, so this is where it gets confusing because I'm like, if you have Magneto in custody and not only that, under mind control, he's the perfect scapegoat to go kill the president. Use him, not Nightcrawler, to attack the president and kill him. And then you can blame the guy who tried to attack everybody at Ellis Island. Like, yeah, this is the guy who killed the president. Why not use that?
That is a great point. I have no response to that. That's an excellent question. I will say, as it relates to the logistics of mind control here, I guess what I'm assuming is that there's secretions or something that Jason has that he can then use, put them inhibited, right? And then Jason takes control of their mind, shows them some stuff that bends their will or something into some kind of thing similar to how Charles is thinking, that he's helping the kid or something. So I'm assuming that somehow Jason's secretions are what he's using for these drops, but that raises a whole host of other questions as far as where he's getting said secretions from.
Secretions is quite the word you're using here.
I mean, I don't know what other word to use, man. It's a liquid form, and they're using it as drops. I mean, this is establishing canon.
I think he does say something about how he took it out of his brain or something, but
yeah, something like that. You're right. Why not use Magneto? He is the perfect scapegoat. He is already an established villain. That would be the guy to be your patsy for sure.
But it also doesn't make sense. Like, Nightcrawler gets shot in the arm. Does that break him free from the mind control? And then he's like, oh, what am I doing? I got to get out of here. And then Cyclops just has like some rubble fall on him, and that breaks him out of mind control. So I guess all you have to do is just like get punched in the face, and that breaks you free from mind control. So this is not good mind control theory we're working with here.
Yeah, a lot of like sharp pain gets you out of it. But yeah, it's a lot of questions there. Fair point. I don't really have a whole lot to add beyond this sentence, but that guard has just a lot of iron in his body. A lot.
Well, she injected it into him.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, if you got a huge, that's the biggest syringe I've ever seen in my life, shot into your body, I feel like you're not going to work the next day. Like,
he's calling out sick.
It's just like, she put something in me and I'm not feeling good because that is a lot of metal. I'm just saying.
My next one is, so are we safe to assume that Cyclops just likes to jam out to NSYNC in his car?
I think that's right.
Cyclops is a boy band fan.
I think that's right. To be fair, again, having lived through that era, I had a lot of friends who were not into that stuff who liked it ironically. So it's possible that he's actually like a big indie rock guy, but he just is like, this is just funny to me. Like, it's just that I'm Cyclops, the coolest person ever, would have an NSYNC album. Ha ha ha. It's possible. But I actually think his love is probably sincere. And Cyclops strikes me as the kind of guy who just turns on the radio and like whatever is playing, he's like, yeah, I like it. And it's like, ooh, this NSYNC band's good.
I can see that. Yeah, he has no taste.
My next one is that Mystique has to know that Wolverine will literally sniff her out when she tries to get with him in the tent as Jean Grey. And then she kind of shapeshifts. Like, he kind of, I can't remember precisely how it goes. I think he catches the jig is up, and then she's like, well, what about Rogue? What about Storm? First of all, this guy can smell like nobody's business. So he's going to know right away. That's not what Jean smells like.
I didn't really understand the point of this scene though, because she's just like, well, what do you want? And he's just like, I want you to get out of here. And she's like, okay, bye, and leaves. And that was it. Was the whole point of the scene just to show that this fantasy could possibly happen in this universe?
Yeah, it's a weird scene. It's a weird scene. I would just be like, turn into that hot actress Rebecca Romaine
There you go.
and let's do it, But that's just me.
So my last one is as they're flying back in the Blackbird with Nightcrawler and Wolverine, and everybody's finally back in the jet together. And right before they get attacked by the fighter jets, Wolverine gets up and, like any backseat passenger, says, "Are we there yet?" Storm is like, "Yeah, we're coming up on the mansion now." And then they get attacked and they crash, and Magneto catches them. And then they camp out right there in the woods. If you're coming up on the mansion now, you're close enough to probably walk to the freaking mansion. Why are we camping out in the woods for this scene? I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think there's maybe two answers there, right? They got blown off course when they had to just kind of swerve and try to lose, and or they knew the mansion was going to be just loaded with soldiers waiting for them to come back, so they were just like, we can't go back to the mansion. But you do bring up another point, which is like, what an amazing lucky coincidence that Magneto just happened to be in the exact spot
Yeah.
where the plane is going down. Can you believe it? Like, man, just an unbelievable stroke of luck there that he would be in there. All right, Mike, this is my last one. And I think this is literally my biggest I've got question of any episode we've done so far. So stick with me on this. This is insane to me, actually. It's such a glaring plot hole. It actually has been driving me slowly crazy.
Oh, I'm excited.
And it has to do with the very end of the film. Now, everybody's in the jet. Rogue has like kind of taken control and very haphazardly like landed the plane to save everybody. Cut to the back of the jet. Bobby's sitting there next to her. The dam is breaking. Bobby is sitting in the back of the jet, Mike. What is Bobby's powers again? Oh, that's right. He can freeze water. He can freeze water.
And unlike Pyro, he can actually make his own ice too.
Exactly. Exactly. He just sits there and looks at Rogue and is like, Meanwhile, Jean Grey's like, I guess I'll go out there and stop this with my psychic powers, which I guess she does have, the power to move things with her mind, but nevertheless, this was your moment to shine. Bobby Drake, you have one job. It's to freeze shit. This is your chance to prove you are worthy to be a full X-Man and come on up from the JV squad to the big boy team. And you just sit there. It is inexcusable to me, Mike.
This is great. I did not think of this at all.
Unbelievable, Mike.
I love it so much. It's only because they wanted to have the excuse from a narrative standpoint to have the power of the Phoenix manifesting in her, and she's so powerful that she can do this. But this is a great point, and I don't know. Maybe he's not powerful enough to stop an entire dam from breaking, tidal wave, all that.
I mean, if I'm Professor X, I'm taking control of his mind and being like, I'll puppet your body like a meat puppet and make you do this right now, Bobby. Anyway.
Definitely would have been a cool scene to have that.
Absolutely. All right. I'm glad I got that off my chest because it's been eating me alive, Mike. Now it's time to talk about what X2 is really about. And Mike, this was a real interesting one for me to dive into. And I think stick with me here, buddy, because I think there's a fun tale I'm going to take you on. Now, number one, this is another obvious parable for bigotry, for rights, for minorities, and the Bobby scene with his parents is full-on coming out scene. Bryan Singer is gay. I think that scene means a lot to a lot of people, and so I want to acknowledge that. It's a very clear allegory for coming out to your parents. But what this movie is really about was T.H. White, the once in the future king. The very last scene, Professor X gets all of the kids back at Xavier Mansion around, and it's literally fading out, and he says, has anyone ever heard of T.H. White? And he pulls out the book, which Magneto, by the way, I believe was reading in his cell.
Yep.
Now I'm like, I have not read this book. I had no idea what it's about. So I did a little Googling. The Once and Future King is about the legend of King Arthur, and it collects T.H. White's short novels, including The Sword and the Stone. Now, this was the contemporary retelling of the Arthurian legend that is so famous in England, where both Charles Xavier I guess Magneto's not from there, but one can assume with his accent that he was raised there after the Holocaust. Anyway, in this book, Merlin tutors the aspiring King Arthur, and he instills in him the concept that, quote, the only justifiable reason for war is to prevent another from going to war. Given the preemptive launch of the war in Iraq this year, this is a fairly provocative concept to play with in a superhero film. Nevertheless, that is clearly subtext in this movie. However, what is explicit in X2 is that their mission is to prevent a preemptive war with mutants that Stryker is attempting to instigate, first through his false flag attack on the president with Nightcrawler, and then his evil scheme to kill all the mutants with Professor X. Magneto, meanwhile, is all too happy to go to war. He's trying to also provoke a war by hurting all the humans, killing potentially all of them, trying to trigger the president into some sort of action, which we do see in that final scene. They're all thwarted by the X-Men, and tellingly, the president's address never really goes into like what he actually says. He just kind of is sitting there blinking his eyes. You don't actually find out what he says. It's an ambiguous ending that leaves us all kind of questioning what the future is going to be. It's precarious. But through all of their actions, unambiguously analogous to King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, with Professor X in the role of King Arthur, obviously, they are attempting to avert a broader conflict, embodying the noble spirit of leadership that Merlin laid out in The Once and Future King. I thought that was a very keystone moment once I started Googling it and being like, what is that book actually about? It's like, that's the whole theme of this movie. This is the only justifiable reason for war is to prevent another from going to war. If that's not the X-Men, I don't know what is, Mike.
That wasn't timely to 2003, like you said, too.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Good themes there. Love these X-Men. Kind of deep, man. Kind of deep. And now it's time for our final category, the final verdict. Now, if you were listening at the top, as you should have, unless you're a sicko that just jumps to the end to the final verdict section, which God bless, I have already deemed this movie a superhero classic. In my mind, this is up there with all the best superhero films. I think it's definitely, I mean, we got to rewatch some more, but I think for sure it's the leader in the clubhouse of X-Men, best X-Men movie right now. To me, this might be even potential Mount Rushmore, where if you're going to make a rather large Mount Rushmore that includes all the various comic book franchises, if this is the best X-Men movie, I think that would belong in the X-Men spot on Mount Rushmore. I love this movie. I was blown away by it again. It's an absolute classic in my opinion, and I'm dying to know, Mike, what is your final verdict?
I love this movie. I don't think it's the best X-Men movie, and so therefore I'm going to put it a little bit lower than you. I'm going to go great with it, and you're stunned. I can tell.
I am. I'm stunned.
I do think it, like I said, it holds up really well. It has some amazing set pieces, and I just think that it does kind of drag a bit in the final act of the movie. The Alkali Lake stuff, it's like, I don't need a lot of this.
It's
You
fair.
can skip past it.
It's a very long scene. Yeah.
We spent a lot of time underground too. It's just kind of like these sets are not where I want to spend most of my time with this movie. It moves really well for the first half to three quarters of the movie because our characters are moving from scene to scene, and it's a fun, like it almost like an adventure movie, and then it just kind of becomes stagnant. I feel like for that reason, I think it does get a couple points knocked off of it. So not quite a classic. It's really, really close for me. I'm giving it great.
Wow. I'm stunned. This is our first major disagreement on this podcast.
No, it's not. We've had we've had other disagreements.
We've had a couple of disagreements here and there, but
Batman Returns, I think, was our first one.
yeah, that's true too. There's another classic in my mind, but maybe I'm just the guy that hands out classics a little too willy-nilly, and you're the more conservative critic. Fair enough. I respect it. I think that probably is true based on other films sometimes, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree. It's not like you're dissing this movie, so
No, absolutely not. I love this movie.
upper echelon of superhero films. I think that's where we're at. Well, now it's time for our final categories. These are our comic and film recommendations based on what we just watched. Mike, why don't you kick us off with your comic recommendation?
I actually don't have a comic this time. I couldn't think of a good one. I was trying to go through my favorite X-Men comics, and I feel like they're more applicable to other X-Men movies that we'll be covering later. So I'm just going to go straight into film rec. Did you know that, I don't know quite how to pronounce her name, Famke Janssen, Is that how you said?
Sure. I don't know how to say it either, actually.
Jean Grey and Alan Cumming are both in one of the best James Bond movies of all time, GoldenEye. He plays Boris, the pen clicking crazy computer hacker, and she plays Miss Zinnia Onatop, aptly named, of course, as every Bond mistress is. And she's kind of a crazy femme fatale in that role. And Pierce Brosnan's first appearance as James Bond, I think it's one of the great Bond movies of all time, especially from the Pierce Brosnan era. It's definitely the best of his, I think. And it's a fun movie. It's great. I love that movie, and they're both in it. And that's my recommendation.
All right. Wow. I had no idea. I literally, whenever I hear GoldenEye, I just think of Nintendo 64 game and how many hours I spent in my youth watching other people play that game and just being like, I hate first person shooter video games. These suck. Big game for a lot of people. Absolute nightmare for a handful of us. And I am in that minority, but good film. It's been a long time since I've watched it. I didn't even remember the two of them were in that film, but when you can get a 2-for-1 like that, you got to go for it, and much respect. Well, for me, I've got a couple recommendations. We'll start with a comic one. So this story arc is kind of based on an earlier graphic novel published in November of 1982 entitled God Loves, Man Kills. This is where William Stryker is actually first introduced. And Mike, in the comic book, he's a televangelist. So in the 1980s, there were a lot of like really crappy preachers coming on TV at all hours to basically be like, God hates sin, and just really, they were all very negative and really judgmental. Pat Robertson, among the worst of them. There was just a whole lot of them, and they were not really, in my opinion, very great Christians. So this graphic novel, which was written by Chris Claremont under the name Christopher Claremont to show that it was a little bit more sophisticated adult title, really takes aims at them by basically introducing the character of William Stryker as this really persuasive, popular televangelist who's basically going around spouting anti-mutant ideology. It's interesting because it introduces the character of William Stryker, but it also has a lot of like explicit things that they borrowed for the movie. In the comic, it's actually his son who dies, like, and he murders his own kid because he's born a mutant, and that's kind of his origin. It's fairly dark, and there's definitely some dated elements to it, let's say, but like it really gets into the heart of the X-Men stories when it comes to discrimination, bigotry, prejudice, and the X-Men's attempt to rise above those base instincts and provide an example for the rest of the world. That's really what I love about the X-Men, and this comic does a really good job in illustrating those themes. So I would highly recommend it. X-Men God Loves, Man Kills. As for my film recommendation, we discussed briefly on the last episode that there are two characters who Patrick Stewart is best known for in his film and television work. One of those is Professor X. The other is Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek The Next Generation, which got me thinking, I need to go back and watch some of those. And of course, I landed on my favorite Star Trek movie of all time, Star Trek First Contact. This is the 1996 film directed by Jonathan Frakes, himself an actor in Star Trek The Next Generation. It's just a great film. It basically is a time travel movie where the cast of The Next Generation travels back to when mankind made first contact with the alien species. Turns out to be Vulcans, in a clever bit of casting. And then it also brings in the Borg, who are a hive mind situation, and Data kind of starts to become human. They start manipulating him. I just think it's really like the most fun of all the Star Trek movies. I think it's one of those that, like, even if you've really never watched The Next Generation, you can kind of jump in. I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan, so it's really accessible for people who aren't among the biggest Star Trek fans, and I really enjoyed it. Just on rewatch, I was like, this is just another delightful film in the Star Trek canon. I think they're kind of up and down overall, and this is certainly among the best of them. So that's my recommendation. 1996 Star Trek First Contact.
Yeah, it's a good one. I actually watched it last year, coincidentally, just on a whim, and yeah, had a great time. It's one of the better Star Trek movies for sure.
Pretty much everything with James Cromwell in it, future superhero cinema club star. It's always better with him. Just wait, we'll get there, Mike. I know you can't remember. I had forgotten it too, but he does show up in a big part actually
Okay.
later on. Cromwell's the man. I've loved him since Babe.
Yeah.
And pretty much every movie he's in, it's 20% better because James Cromwell's in it, as well as television show. Like, the guy's filmography is pretty unimpeachable, honestly, looking through it. I was like, man, he's been in all kinds of bangers. Yeah, he's the human who makes first contact with the aliens. So shout outs to James Cromwell. And shout out to you, dear listener, because you have reached the end of our episode on X2. Mike, this was a real fun one. Love talking about this movie. Justice for Gene, hashtag. Put it out there on social media, people. Mike will have all the information coming up on how to follow us on social media, so stick around for that part. But let's get those Justice for Gene hashtags going. Never forgive Bobby Drake for this.
Before we dip out, have you seen the YouTube cut of how useless Jean Grey is on the animated show? I'll send it to you later. It's pretty great.
Sounds right up my alley. I'll have to check it out. And we hope you will be around to check out our next episode. Whew. This one's going to be an interesting one, Mike. X-Men The Last Stand, the third film in the original trilogy, directed by the legend,
Oh, God.
Brett Ratner. From one problematic director to another.
Yep.
The X-Men franchise. But we'll get into it there on our next episode of Superhero Cinema Club. Thanks for listening.
Superhero Cinema Club is hosted by Mark Schiff and me, Mike Carnes. Produced by Mark Schiff. Editing by Mike Carnes. Original music provided by Chris Carnes. Find him on Spotify. Be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us at Superhero Cinema Club, and don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a review. Join us next time as we dive into another epic adventure from the world of superhero cinema.